Hello, so we're live today. I haven't done it live for a while, I've just about forgotten how to do it, but really nice today because we have got our lovely Neleta Winter, who's our nutritional therapist who joined us just a few months ago in the autumn. And both Neleta and I do a lot of work with children. So she is just about to join us, so hopefully let's just see. If I press that, then she should be with us. Let's give her a wee second. Yay, there she is. So we're both on. We've done it. We can be impressed with ourselves. 10 out of 10. We've actually managed to do this. We're a lot better at the nutrition side than we are the technology side.
Yes, definitely.
Always a good thing. So yeah, and I forgot to get my stand as well. So I'm actually sitting holding this and thinking, I should have got a stand. I'm going nuts, but never mind. So as I said, we're going to talk about children's health because both Neleta and I work a lot with children and families, and we both enjoy that a lot. It's very, very rewarding work. And interestingly, both Neleta and I actually came to this because of experience with our own children. So my daughter, as many of you know who follow us, she had glandular fever at 14 and then went on to have chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, severe migraines and mood swings, and was very, very unwell for a long time, and was actually out of school ultimately for a couple of years as we tried to find ways to get her better. But long story short, and I won't go into my story because it is too long, we did get it better, but we kicked over a lot of stones until we found the right answer. And it wasn't until we changed nutrition that we understood about food sensitivities and gut health and nutrient deficiencies. It was all nutritional based that we were able to actually find the answers and actually get her better. And then she was able to get back into full-time education, finish her hires, go to uni, because for a while we never actually dreamed she would ever get to uni or finish school because she was so unwell, and it was a very scary time. And with these types of conditions, mainstream don't really have any appropriate answers. They don't find root cause, and that's what you want as a parent. You want to answer, well, why is she ended up with that, and why is it lasting so long, and what can I do to support that? And when you do that, it's just amazing. It's just absolutely totally amazing. And then of course for me and Neleta, it led us both into training in nutritional therapy. So Neleta, do you want to say a little bit about your story and how you got into it?
Yeah, very similar, to be honest. So when my son was a baby, he had really severe eczema, to a point that it was red raw. He was scratching continuously. And it was taking many trips to the doctors, trying to find an answer, because that's what you want. As a parent, you want to know what's going on. You want to find out what's causing it and how you can resolve it, because you don't want to see your child uncomfortable or in pain. And I was getting sort of fobbed off, the typical, oh, it's hereditary, nothing to do with the things he eats. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is just use this cream, which, to be honest, when you look at the creams that you are given, they are just masking a symptom. It's just taking off, a top layer of skin, and then it just reappears. So it's never getting to the root cause of it. So it took me down sort of a rabbit hole trying to find my own answers. So I did look at the whole food intolerance, whether that was impacting on his skin, and we did eliminate dairy, and that made a big difference. That's not to say that was the only thing, because there was a lot we had to work on, working on the gut, removing certain triggers. But after a while, it started to have a big impact, and you can really see the difference. I mean, now he doesn't suffer from eczema. I do know when he has a bit of dairy, as he's a teenager now, I can't control everything he eats, but we have the fundamentals there. We have the gut health good. That's the most important thing.
That's right, and that helps with tolerance as well, because at the end of the day, it's not about the food so much, the intolerance. It's the immune system, it's the gut, it's the response, it's the sensitivity, and it's trying to explain to people that that's where the issue is. And if you restore gut health, then you can gradually reintroduce things back eventually. I mean, in some cases that's more difficult if there's some genuine allergies there, and there might be longer lasting issues, but for many of us, it is possible to bring back things once we've actually worked on gut health over time.
Exactly, because the same with my son. He couldn't have eggs, strawberries or kiwis. He had severe reactions to those, but they were intolerances, and people can build up an intolerance to a food where their immune system's reacting to it, which he obviously had done. Now he's absolutely fine with eggs, he's fine with strawberries, fine with kiwis. So it shows that once you start to look at healing the gut and supporting the immune system, then obviously you're making progress.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the other difficulty that parents have when they're starting to think about removing things, I mean, dairy is the most common one that people go for. I mean, as soon as there's a problem from babies through childhood to teenage, it's always, oh, I'll eliminate dairy and see how I go with that. But the one thing about that, which is interesting, is that people don't actually eliminate dairy at all. What they do is they buy lactose-free products, which are still dairy. And that's the confusion. There's a lot of confusion about the words that we use, the language that we use in nutrition, and that's where working with a nutritional therapist is so valuable, because we can cut through all the noise and find your way to, you know, if I think about when I started in this, before I trained, it was so confusing, because you'd read things and think, well, what on earth does that even mean? Is that dairy? Is that not, you know? And you do have to find your way, and it's stressful enough doing these things, but if you think you're on completely the wrong track, or you've given them something that has got dairy in, then you're in a panic. But the other thing is that people they would go and buy soy-based products. I mean, if you think about the market now for dairy-free, gluten-free, I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. But a lot of those products, in inverted commas, are, you know, a shadow of their former selves, and have got all sorts of additives and things. So did you find that with your son, finding your way to the right things?
And that's the thing. And this is why when I decided to take him off of dairy, it was a case of, you know, I needed support to find out where I was going. Was he getting the calcium? Was he getting the right nutrients? And obviously, when he was a lot younger, there wasn't as much. So obviously the market's a lot better than it was now, but it's also the hidden milk products that you get. You know, you looking at the back of a packet of, you know, some biscuit or cracker or something like that, and you see that it's got this hidden either milk fat or whey or casein or something like that, and you don't realize that it's in these products. And then when you look at the soya based products, most of them have got high in sugars, so it's really difficult to try and get the right balance, but it's looking for the right kind of products, because what we don't want to be replacing dairy with is sugar, because that's going to be creating an imbalance within the gut. And obviously
that's right, exactly. So we're back to square one again. We're feeding the problem without realizing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, eczema is probably the commonest question we get asked. I mean, of all the inquiries, I was talking with Harriet about this, and over the years, the emails, the DMs we get, it's right from babies through to teenage. Eczema is the most common reason that someone would come to us. And it's interesting because, you know, we could get lots of inquiries for asthma. We do get some, often though that's because they've also got eczema as well, and they're coming for the eczema and they're thinking, oh, can you do something with the asthma as well? And of course, we can, and they often do go hand in hand, and it's all the same things that we're looking at. It's thinking about the immune health, the gut health, food sensitivities, allergies, and of course environmental allergies as well. I should say we do testing. We do both food intolerance and food allergy testing, and environmental allergy testing as well. So all of those things are an option, and they're great things that we're able to offer. And you know, we do get to lots of answers through that, but ultimately, even when you've got the test and you've got those answers, it's not just about removing the food or avoiding cats or horses or whatever it is that's come back on your test. It's also about, bottom line, supporting the immune system. So do you want to say a few things about what we would normally do in practice to support the immune system?
Yeah, because the thing is, I always say when there's anything going on in the skin is like a window to the health inside. And it's sort of giving us, our body's very clever at giving us clues that something isn't quite right, whether that's low energy, fatigue, skin issues, those kind of things. So we have to then strip back and sort of go, downstream just to find out what's going on. So by looking at the immune system, because we know that obviously that's the skin is reacting to something. So we know that we need to support the body and support the immune system so it's not overreacting to things. It's not causing this inflammation, which obviously eczema is. It's an inflammatory condition. So looking at supporting it with anti-inflammatory foods, because you've got to think that most kids aren't going to be eating, you know, several portions of oily fish a week. It's probably not at the top of their to-do list. So making sure we include those anti-inflammatory foods like omega-3, things like zinc are amazing for skin health. You know, those kind of things. Healthy fats are essential, obviously, for skin health, but as well as brain health as well. So what we do is we look at how we can support the immune system with those anti-inflammatory foods. Think of all those wonderful, colourful vegetables that obviously provide us with all that wonderful fibre that's going to feed that beneficial bacteria within the gut, because we know the gut plays a big role. You know, most of our immune systems produced in the gut. So if that's not functioning quite as well, we know that's going to obviously impact on the immune system, and then obviously any inflammation is going to be created through, you know, out of the skin. So making sure obviously we support the immune system through, you know, we try and aim for 8 a day of wonderful colourful vegetables with all those wonderful antioxidants, polyphenols, you know, those kind of things, those healthy fats, the omega-3 fats and those kind of things. But it's really essential that that immune system's supported and that gut health is supported as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Funny enough, as you're speaking there, someone has just asked, my son is 15 months old with asthma, gut issues, sleep, behaviour problems. We've tried several probiotics. I feel formula is feeding the bad bacteria. Is he too young to remove the formula? I suppose as well with that, you know, have you tried dairy-free formulas is one question, because we just had it, funny enough, we were just speaking before we came on, because the last couple of days we had an inquiry from a baby with eczema, and she obviously thought she was going along the lines of dairy-free, but actually it was lactose-free. It wasn't dairy-free, and so you could try things like Neocate as a different dairy-free formula for a while. But if, you know, when you are moving on to things, then, you know, it's the sort of things that we're saying, if you are going to remove dairy, it's doing it properly, trying several probiotics. I think that, you know, probiotics are really helpful. Again, the probiotic can be an issue as well, can't they, Neleta? Because it depends how they're made.
Exactly, and they're not all created equal.
Yeah.
So, and also when we're looking, you know, obviously when we're looking at the gut health, we need to ensure that that's functioning well, because it's the immune response that we should be trying to tame down when it comes to eczema, you know, reducing that inflammatory response. So obviously going dairy free can be great, but then we need to look at the overall picture. You know, obviously if sleep is disrupted, there's gut issues as well, then we really need to be looking at supporting gut health and making sure that's functioning well. So dairy free can be great, but we want to look at the whole picture and make sure that everything's supported.
Yeah. And obviously I think that, you know, it's difficult to discuss individual cases. I mean, this lady's now saying that he was on dairy free for a while. They've even made their own, and he was worse on those as he reacts to E numbers and sulfites. So obviously there's a few sensitivities there, and that's fairly typical. He's also reacting to plant-based formulas, except rice milk, which I know is not nutritious. We did a stool test which shows depleted gut microbiome. Okay.
I was just about to say, you know, obviously a stool test will give us a good indication of what's going on. You know, do we have an overgrowth of specific, more pathogenic bacteria? Do we have less sort of short chain fatty acid producing bacteria, that kind of thing? So that might be worth exploring.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, you know, with a case like that, it really is, we would need to go through that individual case. Look at the results that came back on your stool test, and go from there and see how we can work with you to help restore the gut health, support the immune system, and get back on track with a wider diversity of foods going forward. But yeah, it sounds like you've started a few things there and you're on the right track, definitely. and he's obviously just very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
Other things to think, with gut health that we would do, which I'm sure you would about to go on to, but just thinking for this lady, would be things like omega-3.
Yeah.
And that's key. And also omega-3 and vitamin D are also essential for gut health as well. So the thing is, when it comes to gut health, there are lots of issues there. There are lots of, it's really needs to really peel back the layers on the onion and get to the nitty gritty of what's going on, why it's going on, and also what the history has been. Very often in these cases, we've got children with long-term antibiotic use, even in tiny ones, they may have had several rounds of ear infections or whatever, and before you know it, they've got further depletion with the gut because of issues with antibiotics, because of course they knock out the bad guys and the good guys.
You almost have to start from scratch then.
You do, and it does just take time as well. It's not an overnight fix with any of these things. The first thing is understanding the why, understanding the problems and the imbalance, and then working on those going forward to try and restore things and correct things, and building back the diet as well, which I'm sure with your clients and Neleta as well, working with children, you'd be the same as me. You'll notice that a lot of children just don't eat fish at all.
Yeah.
And there's next to no omega-3 because there's not even a chia seed. Oh, there's nothing.
Exactly.
There's literally nothing in the diet.
So this is where supplementation is key, because obviously we need to get it in some form. So we know kids aren't going to eat everything. It would be lovely if they did, but even adults don't always get recommended.
That's right.
So
yes,
is really important. And I actually had a follow-up with a young client this morning who's 6, and he did a stool test, or his family did a stool test, and it came up with a lot of dysbiosis, and we've had to work a lot on the gut. There was a lot of diarrhea, wind, behavioural issues, those kind of things, and the improvement has been amazing. And actually talking to parents today has been absolutely fantastic. We took out trigger foods, so we took out dairy and we took out gluten, but that wasn't all we could do. We obviously had to then try and support and restore gut function, because that's really vital. That's going to have an impact on how the immune system is going to work. So now the results have been absolutely amazing. He's doing so well. So it really does make such a difference. Just small changes. And I always say it's never about eliminating absolutely loads so that you're restricted. What it is about mainly including foods. We may take out the dairy or gluten, but actually we could be adding in omega-3, all those colourful vegetables, those phytonutrients, those anti-inflammatory foods. And that's what's really key.
That's right. And working with us, it's all about building the nutrition. It's not about taking things out so much as adding things in, and making sure that we optimize the nutrition. And that's where it gets exciting, and maybe encouraging children to try things that they never have before. And that's the same working with adults as well, actually. To be a bit braver. We all need to be brave in the supermarket and pick up things that we haven't before, try a different vegetable we've never heard of or something. But certainly we do have a lot of fun with that with children. And I think what's also interesting is that when people initially come, say with a gut issue or with eczema or whatever it might be, and you work on the gut health and you restore things, then a lot of times people notice other things that have benefited. So their behaviour's improved, or their sleep's improved. And as that lady mentioned with the baby before, your sleep is obviously a problem there. And if there are food sensitivities, we would commonly see sleep problems and behavioural problems in children. So that's often a sign, if your child's having problems with behaviour, with concentration, with sleep, then often that traces back to food sensitivities, but also nutrient deficiencies as well. So that's a big part of what we notice. And
also the dark eyes. A lot of children have got those dark bags under their eyes. That's a really clear indication. And I know when my son's had some dairy, because after about a day he's got those dark eyes.
That's right. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why, actually, I should say, because people often ask, do the children, especially very young children, do they need to be present at the appointment? And the answer is, at the beginning, we do like to see them and speak to them and have a little chat just for a few minutes, but they don't need to stay on then. We just really need to physically look at them, because we're looking at the skin, the colour, we're looking for those dark circles, those allergy shinies, as we sometimes call them. We're looking for any puffiness or swelling in the skin. any signs of inflammation, and the colour. So all of these things are really, really helpful to see. But then they can go off and play and do their own thing, because they're certainly not interested in the rest of the conversation. Unless they're older children, and older children do very well and do enjoy the conversation. So I think that, given that I've mentioned older children there, we'll just switch to talk about some of the reasons that maybe the teenagers get in touch. And again, the commonest thing is back to skin, actually, is acne.
Yes.
We get so many inquiries for acne, and also period pains. That's the other thing. Yeah. Or heavy bleeds, you know, that they've started periods and things are not going very well. Can we do anything? And I think that it's becoming better known now that nutrition does affect the skin widely, and that also hormonally as well. It's relevant to hormonal imbalance. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
So obviously when in clinic, we do see a lot of teenagers, because most of the time it is acne, low energy, those kind of things that we see. And I think we've almost been brought up to think that acne is hereditary and that we just have to live with it. But actually, when we look at the effects of diet, that then has an effect on our hormones, because we often, you know, when a child is going to become a teenager and they're going through those mood swings that are, you know, normally up and down, we do always generally say, oh, it's because they're a teenager, it's their hormones. But actually, we should be looking at, okay, those mood swings, that acne, they are hormonal imbalances. Should we be looking at supporting them, those hormones, and how can we do that?
That's right. And interestingly, that often goes back to gut health as well. And when I think back to when I was a teenager and, you know, I had acne, I also had horrendous period pains. And I mean, the most severest dysmenorrhea you can imagine. It was horrific. But I also had gut issues. I had IBS for years. And certainly as a teenager, I can remember being very constipated. And that would have fed right into estrogen dominance, that hormonal imbalance, and the disastrous skin and problems with the period. So looking back, I can see in my case, you know, when I did my training in this, I can think, oh my goodness, that's exactly how I was, and that's why I had that problem. And then there are other things that we look at as well. So you know, knowing about specific foods which detoxify the liver and therefore help with hormone imbalance. So
I always say that. Yeah, with clients, liver health is so important, and it's often overlooked. You know, there's so much in the, you know, the media and social media about gut health, and it is vital, because obviously we've got so much going on in there, you know, sort of the immune system, serotonin production, lots of different things. But we also have to look at liver health, because once we've used our hormones, we produce our hormones, we use them, and then we have to detoxify them and get rid of them, because we don't want them recirculating in the body. But unfortunately, there's not many children that probably eat beetroot, oily fish, avocado, walnuts, you know, those kind of things. That's that are really amazing liver, you know, healthy food.
That's right.
And so those hormones are not necessarily detoxified the way they should be. So what they end up doing is recirculating in the body. And those can cause, you know, symptoms of breast tenderness, cramps, heavy periods. And then obviously we then get things like acne, because we've got an excess amount of estrogen in the body, or excess amount of androgens in the body. So we've got this influx that we obviously don't want. You know, we could be eliminating dairy or something like that, which often can be a trigger for acne. But then we also have to look at elsewhere, you know, those hormonal imbalances.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting, because in a lot of the cases that we look at with youngsters with acne and with also problems with period pains, then we do see gut health. You know, very often they're coming also with IBS, or they've got constipation would be a very common one. And that's because, you know, when you do pass a stool, if it's not a normal stool, then we're not clearing estrogen. the way that we should do, and then it's going back through, and that would have been absolutely, in my case, totally. So I wish I'd known then what I know now, as I often say in life. It would have been fantastic to be armed with this kind of information, because you can make fantastic differences at any stage in life. You know, we have people coming with hormonal imbalance right from teenage through to menopause at the other end of the spectrum. You know, it's the same sorts of things that we're talking about. It's back to gut health, liver health, all of these things. But it certainly is one of the most common reasons that people make an appointment with a nutritional therapist. So that's an interesting one. The other topic, I suppose, that we do see is energy, isn't it? That, you know, people will write, and we'll sometimes get an email that will say, I'm not really sure what's going on, but we do get this a lot. I've noticed my daughter or my son is just so low in energy at the moment, and I'm worried that they're just not concentrating in school, and I'm worried that they're not getting the nutrients they need. I think they might need some testing, because I think they might have nutrient deficiencies. And of course, you know, we can do that as part of our work. We do testing for nutrient deficiencies. But sometimes even without that, you know, just looking at, we don't always rush to do testing. We do it very often, but just by looking at the lifestyle, the diet, we can begin to see what those contributing factors might be, or that there could be some obvious deficiencies there. And so we would always work from that as a starting point, wouldn't we, Neleta, really, to have a look at what's actually going on.
And that's always a really clear indication. And that's probably one of my most favourite sections when it comes to obviously going through a client's notes is what are they eating on a regular basis? What are they eating? You know, it's, you know, when, you know, a child is very young, it's easy to monitor what they eat and having a little bit more control over what they eat. But as they get older, they get their own mind. They are exposed to more, you know, when they're in school, peer pressure, friends, those kind of things. So there's probably going to be more consumption of sugars, which we know can have an effect, obviously, on the gut. It's pro-inflammatory, and we know that inflammation within the body can also appear as fatigue, sluggishness, or concentration, that kind of thing. But we're also then replacing a lot of wonderful nutrients from all those colourful vegetables and fruits and whole grains and, you know, those wonderful healthy fats. And they're being replaced by a lot of processed foods, you know, high sugar foods. So it's trying to get a good balance so that the teenager feels happy enough, that they're not feeling like they're being restricted, but they're still getting the right amount of nutrients. We want good absorption. We want good amount of nutrients in there without obviously the need for processed and high sugar foods. If you look at, you know, most children's beginning of a day would be a high cereal breakfast, a high sugar cereal breakfast, which we know from the get-go is going to have an impact. We're going to have that big spike in blood sugar levels, which eventually, very, very quickly, is going to come crashing down. And that's where children struggle with concentration at school, with energy levels. And then obviously lunchtime is probably going to be a sandwich. So again, we're going to have that big spike in blood sugar levels. Then that's going to drop. So we're having this big roller coaster. And what we really want to do is maintain those blood sugar levels as balanced as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is one more question actually before we finish up, and that is a mum who's asking about a child who has a chronic illness and is taking immunosuppressant drugs, and is asking what they can do just generally to support immune system. Obviously we don't know, it doesn't say what the condition is, it doesn't say what drugs they're taking, and obviously from our point of view, you know, we can't get into the individual advice because we don't know. We would have to know, and bear in mind that any medication at any age, you know, we need to know drug nutrient interaction. So we do need to know what's going on, what's, you know, what drug medication you're taking and everything else, because it's all done on a case-by-case basis. But there are general things, aren't there, Neleta, that, you know, if someone just wants some general advice for immune system, what would be your favourites?
So we'd be looking at anti-inflammatory foods. So things like omega-3 are going to be amazing. All those wonderful fibre-rich foods, because obviously that's going to help with gut health, which we know obviously is going to impact on immune system. So things like zinc is really, really important for our immune system. Vitamin A as well is really good. So we want to be looking at those rich anti-inflammatory foods. We know we're going to get most of those from our wonderful, colourful vegetables and fruits, and making sure we've got those good, healthy fats as well is going to be really important, because a lot of those things like nuts and seeds, avocados, extra virgin olive oil, they're all anti-inflammatory foods. And obviously that oily fish is really important. We know not every child is going to have oily fish, so supplementing with a good quality omega-3 supplement is really good as well.
Yeah, yeah. I actually hadn't eaten oily fish until I was 26.
Oh, really?
I hadn't, because we didn't have salmon when I grew up, and salmon was what posh people ate. We didn't have it. And, you know, we would have just had white fish. You know, we often had fish on a Friday. They were very traditional. That would have been the way then. And certainly in the, you know, 60s and 70s growing up, it would have been fish on a Friday. And I think a lot of people of my age would have maybe not had fancy fish until they hit their 20s and were brave enough to have it.
White fish is great, but obviously it's packed with protein. But what we're getting from that wonderful salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, all those kind of things are those wonderful EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids. You know, when we look at diets, you know, the Mediterranean diet is probably going to be one of the best ones, because obviously, you know, my family are from Spain, so there was a lot of fish, oily fish, you know, those wonderful vegetables, colourful vegetables, you know, whole grains rather than sort of the processed grains.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that's where we're trying to head to in all that we do. But omega-3 is such a powerful anti-inflammatory. And again, when we think about period pains, and omega-3 in the studies we know is so important as an anti-inflammatory for prevention of pain and pain management. And you know, we do use those in supplement form. We encourage it in the diet. But I mean, I would have had zero omega-3 in my diet as a young girl, because you know, no one had heard of a flaxseed in the 70s. I mean, we just hadn't. And that was a new thing. And so yeah, we've really moved on, and there's so much that we can do. And again, you know, along with omega-3, things like ginger, again, I mean, nobody ate ginger in the 70s. Or maybe some people did, but ordinary people didn't. And that again is a powerful anti-inflammatory that I would recommend now, and I would encourage it in the cooking as well as in supplement form for things like period pains. But you know, we've come a long way. In some ways things have got a lot worse, in some ways things have got better because we have better knowledge. But the trouble with more knowledge as well is that there's more confusion.
Exactly.
And I think that with nutrition, it's an absolute minefield. You know, when we were both studying, there would be times, I'm sure with you, Neleta, probably found that we think times when you thought, oh, I've cracked it now, I've worked all that, and then they would throw in another layer, and you think, oh no, that completely throws everything up in the air.
And it is it's all saturated. We're so saturated with more information, but so contradictory. So one week we're told eggs are bad, then the next week we're told they're good. Same with carbohydrates. And I do think the 80s probably ruined a lot of the culture, because it was low fat, low carb, which obviously then made certain diseases more prevalent, or illnesses more prevalent. So it's trying to filter out the right thing. And also, you know, if we all ate the same, we wouldn't look the same, you know. So this is why what we do is great, because it's personalized. We look at the whole picture, we look at the whole person, and then we don't just go, okay, we have the same thing for everybody, because it doesn't work like that. What might work for someone might not necessarily work for another. But what we do is that we work on an individual basis to try and get to the root cause.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're about, which is probably a nice thing to end on, actually, that we, you know, we said we'd stick to half an hour. We can easily talk for several hours here all night, but I think we will leave this half an hour, and that gives people a chance to listen to it afterwards. But yeah, no, it's been lovely talking to you, Neleta, and sharing with you on this lovely topic of children's health that we both enjoy. If you're not sure if nutrition is going to be helpful to you or your child, and you'd like to know more, you can easily email us, you can DM us, you can also arrange a call back. So we have things called discovery calls, which you can book in, and then we can answer any questions. And we do work with all ages of children right from birth. Harriet, our reflux specialist, of course, on the team, she works with the babies on the reflux and colic side, which is lovely, and she also gives breastfeeding support as well. So she does her mindful breastfeeding classes. So we really do. So Neleta and I also work with fertility as well, I should say. So we can help you get pregnant, and then when the babies come along, we can support you right the way through with breastfeeding challenges, with reflux, through to sorting out children's health problems later on. So nutritional therapy is wonderful. It really is so exciting and so life-changing. And you know, as we said earlier, Neleta and I wouldn't be where we here are today if our children hadn't have become well and we hadn't been pushed in that direction. But it's a lovely thing to do. So hopefully we will see some of you in clinic at some point with one or other of us, which would be lovely. We do have a male on the team now. We have Olivier, some of you will have noticed. So if, again, those older boys might prefer to speak to a man, that's okay as well. We can arrange that. So it's great having a man on the team, actually, because we do find the guys instinctively go to him. So that's us, and thank you again, Neleta, and we'll do this again to have a different topic. Definitely do this again. Now we've worked out how to do it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.